Family Feud is supposed to be a family game. That is the whole point. 5 family members stand on a stage, they answer questions together, they support each other, and they win together. Every person on that stage gets a turn. Every person gets a voice. That is how the game works. But on a Thursday afternoon in October 2024, one husband decided that the rules did not apply to his wife. Every single time Steve Harvey turned to her for an answer, her husband jumped in front of her, talked over her, and physically blocked her from the microphone. Not once, not twice, every single time. And when Steve Harvey finally had enough, he did something that the audience would never forget. He stopped the entire show, looked that man dead in the eyes, and ordered him off his stage. What happened after that would leave the studio in tears and prove that sometimes the most important thing a person can win is not money. It is the right to be heard. Now I need to tell you something. This story starts with anger, but it ends with something beautiful. It is one of the most emotional stories we have ever covered, and I think it is going to stay with you for a long time. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single word of this. Let me tell you what happened. The Garrison family from Tulsa, Oklahoma had traveled over 700 miles for this taping. 5 of them had piled into a rented SUV and driven through the night to make it to the studio on time. For most of the family, the trip had been filled with excitement, laughter, and the kind of nervous energy that comes before something big. But for 41-year-old Nicole Garrison, the trip had been something else entirely. It had been 12 hours of sitting in the passenger seat while her husband, 44-year-old Darren Garrison, told her exactly how the game was going to go, which questions she should let him handle, which answers she should not bother trying, where she should stand on the stage so she was not in the way. Nicole had listened to all of it without saying a word. She had learned a long time ago that arguing with Darren cost more energy than it was worth. It was easier to nod, easier to agree, easier to let him have his way and save herself the exhaustion of a fight she was never going to win. This had been the rhythm of their 18-year marriage, Darren leading, Nicole following, and the world spinning along as if nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. And the people who knew it best were their 3 children, standing on that stage beside their parents. There was Jasmine, 16, the oldest, a junior in high school who was captain of the debate team and who carried the kind of quiet fire that came from growing up watching her mother be diminished and swearing to herself that she would never let anyone do the same to her. Then there was Caleb, 13, an 8th grader who loved science and who had recently started staying after school to avoid being home during the hours when his father's controlling behavior was at its worst. And the youngest was Lily, 8 years old, a 3rd grader with big brown eyes and a laugh that could fill a room, who did not fully understand the dynamics in her home but who had started drawing pictures at School of Families where the mother was always standing behind everyone else, half hidden, barely visible. Nicole Garrison was not a weak woman. That is an important thing to understand before this story goes any further. Nicole held a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Oklahoma State University. She had been a 2nd-grade teacher for 6 years before Jasmine was born. She had been excellent at it. Her principal had told her she was one of the most naturally gifted educators he had ever hired. Her students had adored her. Their parents had requested her year after year. Teaching was not just Nicole's job, it was her calling. But when Jasmine was born, Darren had decided that Nicole would stay home. He did not ask. He did not suggest. He informed her. He said that a good mother was a present mother and that their children deserved to have someone at home full-time. Nicole had agreed, partly because she wanted to be there for her baby, and partly because disagreeing with Darren was a battle she did not have the energy to fight with a newborn in her arms. She told herself she would go back to teaching when the kids were older. But older kept getting redefined. First it was when Jasmine started kindergarten. Then it was when Caleb was old enough. Then it was when Lily did not need her anymore. The goalposts kept moving, and Nicole kept standing still, watching her career and her identity shrink year by year until the woman who had once commanded a classroom full of 7-year-olds could barely command a conversation at her own dinner table. Darren, meanwhile, had built his career without interruption. He was a regional operations manager for a logistics company. He made good money. He provided well, and he used that financial contribution as a constant, unspoken reminder that his voice was the one that mattered in their household. He did not say it in those words. He did not have to. The message was delivered in 1,000 small ways, in the way he made all the financial decisions without consulting Nicole, in the way he planned vacations without asking what she wanted, in the way he answered questions directed at her in social settings, finishing her sentences or simply replacing her answers with his own. Garrison did not silence Nicole with cruelty. He silenced her with constant, systematic erasure. There was one more thing, something that only Jasmine knew. 4 months before the Family Feud taping, Nicole had quietly applied for a teaching position at an elementary school in Tulsa. She had updated her resume late at night, written a cover letter on her phone while pretending to scroll social media, and submitted the application without telling Darren. She had received a call back. She had done a phone interview in the parking lot of the grocery store, and she had been offered the position. It was sitting in her email, waiting for her response. A way back to the person she used to be. But Nicole had not accepted it yet because she was terrified of what Darren would say. Jasmine had found out when she noticed her mother crying in the laundry room one evening. Nicole had shown her the offer email and said, "I do not know if I am allowed to take it." Jasmine had looked at her mother and said, "Mom, you do not need permission to be yourself." Those words had lodged in Nicole's chest like a seed waiting for enough light to grow. The game started with the Garrisons facing off against the Reeves family from Memphis. Steve Harvey was in fine form, the audience was energized, and both families seemed ready to play. The first round began, and Steve went down the line asking each member of the Garrison family for answers. When he got to Nicole, she leaned toward the microphone with a small smile and started to say her answer. She got exactly 2 words out before Darren stepped in front of her, physically positioning his body between her and the microphone, and said, "What she means is," followed by his own answer. Steve looked slightly surprised but let it go. It was the first round. These things happen. The second round started. Steve asked the question and went down the line again. When Nicole's turn came, she took a breath and began to answer. Darren immediately cut in. "No, babe, that is not going to be on the board. Let me handle this one." He gave his own answer without waiting for her to finish. Nicole stepped back. She did not argue. She did not push back. She simply retreated into the background the way she had been retreating for 18 years. The audience noticed. You could see the discomfort spreading across the rows. People were looking at each other. People were frowning. Something was wrong, and everyone could feel it except Darren. The third round was the breaking point. Steve asked the question and pointed at Nicole specifically. He looked directly at her and said, "Nicole, this one is for you. Give me your answer." It was a deliberate move. Steve had clearly noticed the pattern and was trying to make sure Nicole got her turn. Nicole opened her mouth, and Darren, without hesitation, without shame, and without any apparent awareness of what he was doing, reached over, put his hand on Nicole's shoulder, gently but firmly guided her back a step, and leaned into her microphone. "I got this one, Steve. She's not great under pressure." The studio went ice cold. The audience did not murmur. They did not gasp. They went completely, totally silent. The kind of silence that feels like a physical weight pressing down on everyone in the room. The Reeves family across the stage looked appalled. Mrs. Reeves turned to her husband and whispered something while shaking her head. The camera operators, who had been capturing a routine game show episode, suddenly understood they were documenting something much more significant. Nicole stood where Darren had positioned her, 1 step behind him, 1 step back from the microphone. 1 step removed from the game that was supposed to be hers too. Her eyes were glassy. Her lips were pressed together. Her hands were clasped in front of her in that posture that had become her default over 18 years, the posture of a woman who had been moved aside so many times that she no longer fought to stay in place. Jasmine's face was burning with anger. The 16-year-old debate team captain was clenching her fists at her sides. Caleb had his arms crossed, his jaw tight, looking at the floor. Lily was holding onto her mother's hand, sensing something was wrong but not fully understanding what it was. Steve Harvey had seen enough. He set down his cards. He did it slowly, placing them on the podium with a deliberate precision that the audience had learned to recognize as the signal that the game was no longer the priority. He stepped out from behind the podium and walked to the center of the stage. His face was a landscape of controlled intensity, not rage, something more precise than rage. It was the focused, unwavering determination of a man who had decided that what he was about to say was more important than any television show. "Sir," Steve said, and the word landed in the silence like a stone in still water, "I have been watching you for 3 rounds. Every time I ask your wife a question, you step in front of her. You talk over her. You physically move her away from the microphone 3 times, in front of your children, in front of all these people. On my show where every family member gets an equal voice." He paused. "Now I asked Nicole for her answer, not you, Nicole, and you stepped between her and the microphone like she was not even standing there, like her answer did not matter, like she did not matter." Darren shifted his weight. The easy confidence was faltering. "Steve, I'm just trying to help us win. She gets nervous on camera. I know the kinds of answers that score well. I'm trying to help the family." Steve shook his head. No, sir, you are not helping. Helping is encouraging your wife. Helping is cheering her on. Helping is letting her speak and supporting whatever she says. What you are doing is replacing her. And there is a very big difference between helping someone and erasing them. The audience broke into the first applause of the confrontation. Steve let it build for a moment, then raised his hand. He was not finished. Sir, I am going to ask you to leave my stage. Darren's eyes went wide. What? Steve, come on. You cannot kick me off for trying to help my wife. Steve's voice dropped lower. I am not kicking you off for helping your wife. I am asking you to leave because your wife has not been allowed to speak on her own stage for 3 consecutive rounds. And the only way I can guarantee that she gets her voice back is if the person taking it from her is not standing next to her. You can sit in the audience. You can watch your family play. But you are not going to stand next to this woman and take one more answer away from her. Not on my stage. The audience erupted. 200 people on their feet. The ovation was thunderous. Darren stood frozen for a moment, looking around the studio, searching for someone who might defend him. He found nobody. Slowly, with cameras tracking every step, Garrison walked off the Family Feud stage. A production assistant guided him to a seat in the audience. He sat down heavily, his face a mixture of anger, confusion, and the very earliest stages of something that might eventually become understanding. Steve turned to Nicole. The fierceness drained from his face and was replaced by something warm and personal. He walked over to her and stood directly in front of her, meeting her eyes. Nicole, the microphone is yours now. Nobody is going to step in front of you. Nobody is going to talk over you. I want to hear from you. Tell me something. What would you have said? Those 3 times he answered for you, what were your answers? Nicole hesitated. 18 years of conditioning does not evaporate in a moment. She glanced toward the audience where Darren was sitting. Then she looked at Jasmine, who nodded at her with fierce encouragement. Then she looked back at Steve, and she spoke. She gave all 3 of her original answers, one by one. Steve checked each one against the boards from the previous rounds. The first answer had been the number 1 response. 28 points the family had missed. The second answer had been on the board as well. 15 points missed. The third answer, the one Steve had specifically directed to her before Darren intercepted, had been the number 3 answer. 17 points. Steve looked at the audience and let the math speak for itself. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman's answers would have given her family 60 additional points across 3 rounds, 60 points that were lost because she was not allowed to speak. He turned to where Darren was sitting in the audience. Sir, you said you were helping. You cost your family 60 points. Every time you silenced your wife, you made your family weaker. Think about what that means, not just here at home. Then Jasmine spoke. The 16-year-old stepped to the center of the stage, and the poise she carried was extraordinary. She did not look like a teenager on a game show. She looked like a young woman who had been waiting for this moment for years. Mr. Harvey, my mother was a teacher, one of the best teachers in Tulsa. Her students loved her. Their parents loved her. She gave it up because my father told her to stay home, and she did. Because she loved us, because she loved him. And for 18 years, she has been disappearing, piece by piece. Every time he finishes her sentences, a piece disappears. Every time he answers for her at a restaurant, a piece disappears. Every time he makes a decision without asking her, a piece disappears. Jasmine's voice cracked, but she kept going. And there is something else. My mother has been offered a teaching job, right now. The offer is sitting in her email. She has not accepted it because she is afraid my father will not let her. She is afraid of what he will say. My mother is 41 years old with a college degree and a job offer, and she is afraid to open an email because of my father. That is what 18 years of being silenced does to a person. The studio erupted with an emotional intensity that surprised even the production crew. People were sobbing. People were on their feet. The sound was enormous. Nicole was crying, her hand covering her mouth, looking at Jasmine with an expression that was equal parts horror that the secret was out and overwhelming gratitude that someone had finally said it out loud. Caleb spoke next, his voice quiet but steady. Mom, take the job. Please take the job. I remember when you used to tell us about your students. Your eyes would light up. I have not seen that light in a long time. Take the job. Lily, the 8-year-old, looked up at Nicole and said, in a voice so pure and honest that it silenced every other sound in the room, Mommy, you should be a teacher. You are the best teacher. You teach me everything. Steve Harvey was openly weeping. He did not attempt to hide it. He pulled Nicole into a hug and held her while she cried. When he finally stepped back, he looked at her with absolute sincerity. Nicole, I am going to say something to you, and I want it to be the first thing you hear when you wake up tomorrow morning and every morning after that. You are not behind anyone. You are not less than anyone. Your voice, your answers, your ideas, they are not just valid. They are valuable, 60 points valuable, and that is just on a game show. Imagine what you are worth when the stakes are real. Steve announced that Nicole and her children would finish the game as a team of 4. The game resumed, and the transformation was immediate. Nicole stepped up to the microphone, and for the first time all day, nobody stood in front of her. She answered question after question with sharp, confident precision. Every answer hit the board. The audience cheered after each one, not just for the points, but for the woman behind them. The Garrison family won the game in a landslide. Nicole and Jasmine played fast money together. Mother and daughter side by side, their voices overlapping in a rhythm that felt like the beginning of something new. They scored 191 points and won $20,000. When the final total was revealed, Nicole covered her face with both hands and wept, not from sadness, from the overwhelming release of a woman who had just proven to herself and to the world that she had been capable all along. Jasmine held her. Caleb held her. Lily climbed up and wrapped her arms around all of them. It was the image of a family finding its center for the first time. Steve made one final announcement before the taping wrapped. He said that his foundation would be providing Nicole with a $10,000 education grant to support her return to teaching, whether for classroom supplies, professional development, or whatever she needed to step back into the career she had been forced to leave behind. He also connected her with a women's empowerment organization in Tulsa that provided mentorship and career support for women re-entering the workforce. The audience cheered. Nicole could barely speak through her tears, but she managed 2 words that said everything. Thank you. When the episode aired 3 weeks later, the response was staggering. The clip of Darren repeatedly blocking Nicole from speaking and Steve ordering him off the stage went viral, surpassing 70 million views across platforms in the first week. But it was Steve's revelation about the 60 lost points that became the defining moment. The concrete mathematical proof that silencing Nicole had literally cost the family points became a metaphor that resonated with millions. The hashtag 60 points trended globally for 5 days. People used it to describe the cost of being silenced in their own relationships, careers, and communities. Therapists adopted it as a framework for discussing the tangible losses caused by emotional suppression. The impact on the Garrison family was transformative. Nicole accepted the teaching job the day after the taping. She later told a reporter that she sat in her car in the driveway, opened the email on her phone, and hit accept before she could talk herself out of it. When she walked inside and told Darren, he started to protest, and for the first time in 18 years, Nicole interrupted him. Darren, I am taking this job. This is not a discussion. This is a notification. She said it calmly, clearly, and without apology. Jasmine, who was in the kitchen, heard every word and smiled so hard she cried. Darren entered counseling. The public humiliation had cracked something open in him, and what came out, slowly and painfully over the following months, was a recognition that what he had called leadership was actually control, and what he had called helping was actually erasing. It was not an overnight transformation. Darren resisted at times. He backslid at times, but the image of his wife standing alone at the microphone, delivering answers that scored higher than any of his, played on a loop in his mind. He could not unsee it, and slowly, reluctantly, and then genuinely, he began to change. Nicole returned to teaching in January. She walked into her new second-grade classroom at Whitman Elementary on a Monday morning, set up her desk, arranged the tiny chairs, and wrote her name on the whiteboard. When the first students arrived, something inside Nicole that had been dormant for years woke up completely. By the end of the first week, the principal told her she was the best hire they had made in years. By the end of the first month, parents were already requesting her for the following year. The light that Caleb had talked about was back, not dimly, not flickering, blazing. Nicole started a program at her school called Every Voice Counts. It was a classroom initiative where every student was guaranteed an opportunity to share their thoughts during each lesson. No one could be talked over. No one could be skipped. Every child got their turn. The program was based on a simple rule that Nicole printed on a poster and hung above her whiteboard. Your answer matters, we want to hear it. It was the same thing Steve Harvey had said to her on the Family Feud stage, and she was passing it forward to the next generation. The program was so effective that other teachers at Whitman adopted it. The district noticed. Within a year, Every Voice Counts was being piloted in 15 schools across Tulsa. 6 months after the episode aired, Family Feud brought Nicole back for a follow-up segment. She came with all 3 children. Darren was not on stage, but Nicole told Steve he was in counseling and making progress. It is slow, she said, but it is real, and slow and real is better than fast and fake, Steve smiled. That is the truest thing I have heard in a long time. Nicole shared her story, the teaching job. The Every Voice Counts program, the changes at home. She told Steve that the 60 points had become a kind of symbol in their household. When Darren started to talk over her or make a decision without consulting her, one of the kids would say, Dad, 60 points. It was their shorthand for reminding him that silencing Nicole cost everyone. Darren, to his credit, would stop, take a breath, and ask Nicole what she thought. It was not perfect, but it was progress. Steve closed the follow-up with words that viewers would remember. 6 months ago, I watched a woman get erased on my stage. Her husband stood in front of her microphone, spoke over her, and acted like she had nothing to contribute. Today, that same woman is a teacher again. She is changing the lives of children. She is running a program that guarantees every voice gets heard. And her answers, the ones her husband tried to block, scored 60 points more than anything he said. He paused and looked into the camera. If someone in your life keeps stepping in front of your microphone, step around them. Your voice is worth hearing. Your answers matter. And anybody who tries to convince you otherwise is costing everyone points. Do not let them. If this story touched you, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell. And share this video with someone whose voice has been taken, whose answers have been blocked, and whose light has been dimmed by someone who confused control with love. Share it and remind them that their voice matters, their answers matter, and they are worth 60 points more than anyone who tried to silence them. On this channel, we believe that every person deserves to be heard, not talked over, not replaced. Heard. I will see you in the next one.